It's frightening. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. That's a verse people puzzle over. Peter tells us what it means. Acts 13:33. He says, Paul, this spake he of the resurrection. This day have I begotten thee. I will give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, the innermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise, therefore, O ye kings, and be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Yeah. This day is coming. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. I think it's a psalm for our time. The heathen are raging, imagining a vain thing. They're setting themselves against the Lord and against his anointed. Let's cast away their cords from us. It's frightening. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Judgment is coming. And if you turn to Jeremiah chapter 30, judgment is coming upon Israel. Pardon me. We don't like to think that. Israel has been in rebellion from the very beginning. And God has not wanted to pour out his wrath upon them, but he is forced to. As we mentioned earlier, he must fulfill his promise for judgment as much as he fulfills his promise. Thank you. As he fulfills his promise for blessing. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble. Verse 3. Jeremiah 30, verse 3. For lo, the days come, saith the Lord. I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith the Lord. I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. I believe that's in the process now. People say no. Some people say it couldn't be possible. Those people are over there in unbelief. Well, that's pretty simple. Where do they come to faith in Christ? In the land, after they've come back, when he rescues them in the midst of Armageddon. So we get a mixture here. He's bringing them back, but he's also at the same time punishing them, and yet he is preserving a remnant. Verse 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. Pardon me. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. The worst time for Israel yet lies ahead. The time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be delivered out of it. So we get this mixture. Go down to verse 10. Therefore, fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord. Strange words. Neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. Jacob shall return and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee. But I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Wow. The Bible is fantastic, isn't it? The Lord lays it out for us. It's pretty clear. It ought to be clear. You go to chapter 31. Well, let's save that for sake of time. We'll come back to it if we can. Prior to this time, we're in heaven now. There's going to be a false peace. We get that in Daniel. chapter 8. We can turn there. Daniel chapter 8. Not too many of you have your Bibles this evening. Daniel chapter 8. And of course, as I said earlier, I think, maybe yesterday or this morning, not all of the speakers agree on everything. So there are various interpretations. Some of these things are difficult to interpret. I just give you my understanding. Verse 23, Daniel 8:23, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, that's what Brother Norbert was talking about. Transgression is coming to the full. It is ripening. This world is ripening for God's judgment. A king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. I think that refers to Revelation 13. It is the dragon who gives him his seat and his authority, and shall prosper and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Well, you got heaven is filling with martyrs up there, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his land, and he shall magnify himself. He sits in the temple of God, declaring that he is God, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also, I think this tells us clearly that this is the Antichrist, he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. That's the second coming. Christ is returning to judge him, to punish him. There's going to be a false peace. Israel will rely upon it. You say, how could that be possible? How can anybody be deceived? I think most of the films, a lot of the books and so forth about the Antichrist have done a disservice to the church and to the world. Hollywood, they depict Antichrist as an obviously evil ogre. No, he will be someone the world will love. And they will worship him, and they will be deceived by him. And he will make a covenant. That's been referred to by a couple of the speakers. Daniel 9:27, a covenant for 1 week. This is the last week, Daniel's 70th week. And obviously it will, well, we're here. Let's turn over the page, and we can read about it. Daniel 9:27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Now, I don't know anything about Hebrew, but the Hebrew scholars tell me that means he's going to impose it. Antichrist can do whatever he wants. No one can withstand him. And he will impose this upon the world. A covenant with many for 1 week. That's Daniel's 70th week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and so forth. Well, obviously, if he causes the sacrifice and oblation to cease, he must be the one who allowed it to start. It will be the Antichrist alone who has the power and authority to cause this temple to be rebuilt. And what sometimes people say, well, no, wait a minute, how could that be? Well, you're going to have the Jewish temple, and you're going to have the Muslim Dome of the Rock, and then maybe we'll throw in a Catholic church, and it's going to be real ecumenical up there on Temple Mount. Well, let me just give you a little insight into that. You know, I was having a little debate with a Muslim, and at Cal State Long Beach, I think it was. And I said, Jerusalem is mentioned 811 times in the Bible, not once in the Quran. How did that ever get to be a holy city for the Muslims? He said it is too in the Quran. Surah 17:1. Well, Surah 17:1, a few of you would know. It talks about Al-Aqsa. It doesn't say Jerusalem. Al-Aqsa, when he built the Dome of the Rock, about 690, if you've been there, beautifully inscribed in Arabic inside the Dome of the Rock are verses from the Quran. Originally, Surah 17:1 was not there. So obviously it wasn't built with the idea that Surah 17:1 was this place to which Muhammad had journeyed. Surah 17:1 talks about his night journey. They put it in more recently, not too long ago. What does Al-Aqsa mean? It means the distant place of worship. And let me let me explain, first of all, how it happened to be built, the Dome of the Rock. I think the Dome of the Rock will be moved. And it's not going to be too difficult to persuade the Muslims to do it. Of course, Antichrist can persuade anyone of anything. But Abd al-Malik was the caliph at that time, and he was pushed out of Mecca. And Mecca was captured by Abd Allah ibn az-Zubair. He proclaimed himself caliph, he set himself up. And so Abd al-Malik built the Dome of the Rock, the new Disneyland. We're going to get you guys to make the Hajj over here, because if you're loyal to us, you can't go to Mecca and so forth. But in 692, Malik recaptured Mecca, and he abandoned the Dome of the Rock. And he went back to Mecca. It didn't amount to much. It wasn't really accepted. It was not a holy place for the Muslims. And let me just quote to you what the Egyptian Ministry of Culture recently published in an interpretation of Surah 17:1. It said, "This text tells us that Allah took his prophet from the Al-Haram sacred mosque in Mecca to the Al-Aqsa mosque. But in Palestine during that time, there existed no mosque that could have been the mosque most distant from the Al-Haram mosque. The night journey, the Isra, from which they date their calendar, was not to Palestine, rather it was to Medina. It began at the Al-Haram mosque, and the journey ended at the mosque of Abd ibn Zurara in Medina. The details of the journey of the Hijrah, that is Muhammad's escape by night from Mecca to Medina, are the very same details of the night journey, Isra, because the night journey of Surah 17:1 is indeed the secret Hijrah. Rather interesting. Now, declarations such as that from authoritative Muslim sources would make it rather easy for the Antichrist to move the Dome of the Rock from Jerusalem over to Medina. Has Israel been deceived? Could they possibly be deceived by false promises of peace? Well, they've been deceived over and over, repeatedly. One of the deceptions, I mean, they've had so many promises of peace, and I don't know how many of you, some of you are old enough to remember, but it was back in 1979, March 26, 1979, that President Jimmy Carter, he hosted the signing of what had been dreamed of for decades, a genuine Middle East peace agreement. That was the first one. That would be between Sadat, Anwar al-Sadat, and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, who at one time had been a terrorist. How about that? Blew up part of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. His gang did, as well as the British embassy in Italy and so forth. That's another subject. But Carter had talked Sadat, not that Sadat loved Israel. Sadat, we give you some quotes about what Sadat had to say. Hitler, you had the right idea, you just didn't finish the job, you know. But anyway, he's now going to make peace, supposedly, with Israel. He's had an offer of how he can get this territory without losing any man, any problems, and he would become the hero for the Arab world. Now, Carter thought he was a Christian. He still does, I guess. Teaches, last I knew, he still was teaching, at least active in the Southern Baptist Church, where he used to teach Sunday school. And so he thought, as he presided over this ceremony, wouldn't it be wonderful if he could quote a verse from the Quran and a verse from the Bible about peace? Now, you know that there are 429 verses, I believe, in the Bible about peace, and you could begin to quote them. Peace I give unto you, my peace I leave with you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. He made peace by the blood of his cross. Therefore, having peace with God, therefore, help me, come on. Therefore, oh my goodness, I know the verses so well. Anyway, you know what it says. Through the blood of Christ, we have peace with God. And there are over 400 of them. But Carter's speechwriters searched the Quran, and searched the Quran, and searched and searched and searched and searched to find a verse about peace. They finally found a verse in Surah 8. Now, every surah has a title. And I don't know, probably most of you don't know the Quran. Mine is all highlighted and underlined and corners turned over and so forth. The title of Surah 8 is Spoils of War. So one place where they found a verse on peace, and let me quote you from Carter's speech. He said, in the Quran we read, but if the enemy incline toward peace, do thou also incline toward peace and trust in God. So let us now lay aside war. We pray, God, that these dreams will come true. Well, ridiculous. The dream of the Muslim is not what he had in mind, and certainly not what Menachem Begin had in mind, but Anwar Sadat knew what it was. And basically what Surah 8:61 says, well, Surah 8 is all about fighting and killing in order to take over the world for Allah. Let me just quote you a couple of the verses. Verse 65 says, O prophet, exhort the believers to fight. Verse 67 says, it is not for any prophet to have captives until he hath made slaughter in the land. That was a new revelation from the Quran that he received for his justification for killing an old enemy at Badr when he conquered a caravan and so forth. So basically the peace that the Quran offers, it says, you're going to go out and fight them, you're going to kill them, you're going to take over the world, but if they surrender, give them peace. Isn't that nice? That is the only peace that Islam offers. The only peace that Islam offers. The blindness not only of Israel, but of the entire world. Chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, Ben Gilman, a Republican from New York. This is 1995. Well, Arafat, while he's making peace, has given speech after speech after speech on Arab television, radio, all over the world. We are not interested in peace. Peace for us means the destruction of Israel. It's not about more land. It's about the very existence of Israel. We're going to exterminate them. We're going to wipe them out. Over and over and over, he said it very clearly, as many other Muslim leaders have said it. And Ben Gilman, chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, he had these on tape. He took these tapes, he put the tapes together, and he was going to present this, the Arafat tapes, to the world in a press conference September 21st, 1995. Who do you think showed up? Nobody. Nobody wanted to hear the truth. And the most astonishing part of all is Israel's ambassador to the U.S. at that time, Itamar Rabinovich, he pleaded with Ben Gilman, please don't show those tapes. It might disturb the peace process. How can you be so crazy, so deceived, so stupid? What peace process? You can't make peace with these people. Has Israel been deceived? They've been deceived many times. Another false promise, another false promise. Things got worse after Oslo in 1993 and so forth, but we can't go into all the details of that. Well, our brother was talking about the rapture, and he's talking about the second coming. The rapture is wonderful. The wedding in heaven in Revelation chapter 19, where the bride is presented to the groom in raiments of white linen, fine and clean, which are the righteousness of saints. She's obviously been through the judgment seat of Christ, and all that has been taken care of. And the rapture is a blessing to the church. It thrills our hearts, but it is judgment from God. It's a prelude to his judgment, because he's taking his own out of this world, because he's going to pour out his wrath upon this earth. And you could say that the rapture of the church marks the beginning. Now God is going to begin to deal with these people who have flaunted their will, their perversions in his face, as we heard tonight. Turn to Ezekiel 38. Now here again, some of the speakers have a little difference. I'm working on them. We'll get them straightened out eventually. But I think this is Armageddon. Now, we have some differences. There are differences in the church. Some people in the church think, no, this is a preliminary war just before the rapture. Others think, no, this is a war in the middle of the Great Tribulation. Whatever you want to think. Look at verse 11. Thou, I think that's Antichrist, shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, having neither bars nor gates. We talked about that briefly, my first talk. The wall is going to come down. No question about it. Why would it come down? Because Israel will be deceived. Through peace, the Antichrist will destroy many. How many will he destroy? I don't know about the rest of the world, but Zechariah 13 tells us 2/3 of all Jews on the face of this earth will be killed. He will bring 1/3 through the fire, and this is what it means. Then all Israel shall be saved, all who are alive at that time. And they will look on me whom they have pierced, God says. Verse 12, to take a spoil, to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations. Whoa, who would that be? Obviously, people who are gathered out of the nations. These are the Jews. And you remember what D. James Kennedy and these other Reconstructionists, Tommy referred to them to some extent. They think it all happened when Israel was brought out of Egypt. Well, Israel wasn't brought out of the nations at that time. These are the people who've been brought out of the nations. They've come to their land. They've been cast out of their land because of their rebellion against God. So these are the people who are gathered out of the nations. They're living now in a false peace, in a land that is prospering. In verse 16, thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me. In my opinion, there are two purposes of Armageddon. Number one, God is going to punish the nations for what they've done to Israel. And we began yesterday, I guess it was, yesterday morning, seems like a long time ago now. We began going to Joel chapter 3, verse 2, remember? God said, I'm going to bring all the nations back to Jerusalem, and I am going to punish them for what they have done to my people Israel. And he names two specifics. They have scattered my people all over this world. Well, that's been going on for centuries. Scattered by persecution, chased like hunted beasts, and slaughtered. And the second reason, they have divided my land. And I won't go back over that, but you know what has happened. A conqueror, Israel's been conquered by many nations. A nation that conquers a land does not divide it. Who would they give it away to? Why would they divide it? For the first time in history, the land of Israel was divided. And you know how that came about. And we can't go back over the 1917 Balfour Declaration, 1919 Peace Conference, 1922 Declaration of Principles of the League of Nations, the predecessor of the UN, and how Britain for oil betrayed their trust, betrayed their mandate, betrayed the Jews. They kept Jews out, even Holocaust survivors that they drove back who came within sight of the promised land. They drove them back. They put them in camps. They even rounded up, can you imagine, Holocaust survivors inside who had gotten into Israel. And they rounded them up and sent them back. Wow. Britain lost its empire. I will curse those who curse you. I'll bless those who bless you. And they gave away most of that land to the Arabs, most of it to make the land of Transjordan, which became Jordan. And finally, UN Resolution 181, November 29, 1947. It's called the Partition of the Land. And they made the final division. Well, no, it wasn't the final division. Israel thought it was. Israel was happy. They weren't happy, but they were willing to accept it. It was the Arabs who would not accept it. They attacked to destroy Israel. And you know what happened. And then, since then, every so-called peace proposal, what is the basis of it? Give them more land. Give them more land. Divide it up. They just come out of the settlements now. Give them more land. Give them more land. And you know the popular T-shirt over there in Gaza now is, what is it? Gaza today, tomorrow the West Bank, and then Jerusalem. This is their intention. They don't intend to stop. So God is angry, and Armageddon is going to punish the nations when they all come against Israel to effect the final solution to the Jewish problem, as Hitler called it. Now, this is frightening language. Go down to verse 19. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel. So the fishes of the sea, the fowls of the heaven, the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. I don't think that's a preliminary battle at any time. This is the grand finale. God is coming back to this earth, and this whole world is going to shake. Even the fish of the sea, the creeping things. It's frightening language. They will shake at my presence. Verse 23, I'm going to sanctify myself. I'll be known in the eyes of many nations. I think that means all of them. They shall know that I am the Lord. You better kiss the Son lest he be angry. You perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little, because the day is coming when he's going to execute judgment. What about Israel? Well, we mentioned Zechariah 13, and you know the verse, we can't turn there. 2/3 of all Jews will be killed. Now, we have a difference of opinion on a number of verses. And I'll just give you my opinion, which I probably have before. But when you come to Matthew 24, is it verse 33? Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away until all these things be fulfilled. Now there's speculation. That's 34. Thanks, Tommy. There's speculation about that. Was that the generation then living at that time? That's what the preterists would say, and Tommy has given us that information. No, it had to be the generation that was on earth at that time, obviously. But when you read Matthew 24, it couldn't possibly have been the generation then, because verse 22 says, except those days be shortened, no flesh will survive. You couldn't wipe out all flesh with bows and arrows and swords and spears. It talks about the second coming, actually. Some people say, well, that's a post-trib rapture. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be dark and the moon won't give us light, on and on. He's going to send his angels with the sound of a great trumpet. He will gather his elect from the four winds. Who's his elect? Israel, mine elect. And there will not be one Jew left anywhere on this earth. They will all be brought back you read of that. Look at verse 28 in Ezekiel 39. Then shall they know that I am the Lord their God, which caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen, but I have gathered them unto their own land, and have left none of them any more there. He's going to send his angels, miraculously bring them all back. to be with the Messiah when he rules on the throne of his father David. So it couldn't have possibly have been that generation that was living on the earth at that time. Well, then there's some people who thought, and I don't know, Tommy might give you his opinion. Some people accused Hal Lindsey, late great Planet Earth, and other books of saying, well, it's the generation that would see Christ return in 1948. I'm sorry, Israel return, thank you. See Israel return in 1948. He sits right here so he can help me. I kibbutz him, but no, he helps me. He's a nice guy. But anyway, it's the people the generation that would see the Jews back in their land, Israel back in their land. Well, generation 40 years, speculation. 1948 to 1988, subtract 7 years, Great Tribulation. 1981, I can remember those days. I remember the bumper stickers. How many of you remember the bumper stickers? Riot at your own rapture. I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk too fast. And I get all confused because Arno has his gimlet eye. Ride at your own risk. I'm leaving in the rapture, okay? And I remember the expectancy in those days. And I can remember people saying, wow, in 1981, what do you think? And I said, I hope for the Lord to return at any moment. I look for him at any moment, but I don't think he's coming now because too many people are expecting him. Because he said, at such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. And I saw the pendulum swing from pre-trib to mid-trib to post to awe, and as we heard, not many people even think about it now. It's a forbidden topic, our brother told us, in Israel. The hard heart of a certain people must be broken. Who is the generation? Jesus used that term in a way that, and John the Baptist used that term. You generation of vipers, who has warned you to flee from the wrath to come? A disobedient, rebellious, gainsaying, sign-seeking, faithless, perverse generation. And Israel would remain in unbelief, in rejection of their Messiah as a whole. Many Jews have come to Christ. In rebellion against God until every sign has been fulfilled, until they cry out, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord, Zechariah 12, and he will pour upon them the spirit of supplication, and they will be in such desperate straits, 2/3 of them killed, and those who are left, they will be broken, and they will cry out for the Messiah to come and rescue them. And that's what he will do. And they will look on me, whom they have pierced. And every eye, Revelation 1:7, every eye shall see him. And they also who pierced him. And they will repent and come to Christ. And we get that in Zechariah chapter 12. Well, what does it say then about Israel? Verse 7, we're back in Ezekiel 39. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Go to verse 22. So the house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God from that day and forward. Whatever this battle is, it's a time when Israel will be redeemed. They will know who he is. They will see him. Look at verse 29. Neither will I hide my face any more from them, for I have poured out my spirit upon the house of Israel, saith the Lord God. Sounds to me like Zechariah 12. Well, Israel will be brought back to the Lord at the second coming. The world is going to be punished for what they have done, for defying the God of Israel, for the rejection of Christ. And let me just quote, I've got a number of scriptures just put together here. And let me just quote them without giving references. It's frightening language. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. They shall be afraid, pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. Do you hear this language? This is frightening. God is going to bring his judgment upon this world. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. Well, that has primarily to do with the 2/3 who will be taken, will be killed. For the stars of heaven, the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth. The moon shall not cause her light to shine. That's Matthew 24 again. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Therefore will I shake the heavens. The earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, in the day of his fierce anger. Alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand, and as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. Listen to these words. These are from the writings of Moses. If I whet, W-H-E-T, God is speaking, if I whet my glittering sword, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies, and will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh. For behold, the Lord will render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. It goes on and it says, the slain of the Lord shall be at that day from one end of the earth, even unto the other end of the earth. Wow. That's frightening language. It's very solemn. And it's coming upon our world. Somebody asked me, why did you write this book? I want to warn the world. I'd like to warn the Muslims. I'd like to warn the Jews. I'd like to warn the nations. But God promised, and just to end on a happy note, if we can, if you think that's possible for me, Ezekiel 36, we're very close there. Look at it. God has promised to restore Israel to her land. She's being restored now. This is in the process. But he's going to finish the work. Look at Ezekiel 38. Look at the end of verse 11. I will do better unto you than at your beginnings, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Verse 22. I do not this, O house of Israel, for your sake, but for mine holy name's sake, which you have profaned among the heathen. I will be sanctified in your midst. Go down to verse 25. I will bring you into your own land. And in verse 24, then will I sprinkle clean water upon you. You shall be clean from all your filthiness. Verse 26, a new heart will I give you, and so forth. Go over to chapter 37, and God says, verse 22, I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. Go down to verse 25, end of it. My servant David shall be their prince forever. Notice the words, verse 26, moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant. The first everlasting covenant, he gave them the land. This is the new covenant, an everlasting covenant, and it's a covenant of peace. They will never be disturbed again. Go to the end of verse 28. My sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. This is a promise of God. He's going to establish Israel. The latter end will be better than the first. And yet we have Christians saying it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Well, God is in the process of doing something. And if we turn, well, just one last scripture. Turn to Isaiah 66. Because people say, well, yeah, but how long is this going to take? And again, I'm giving you my interpretation. You have to come up with your own interpretation. Verse 8, Isaiah 66:8. Who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Now, I don't know what your interpretation of that is, and I'm sure there may be various interpretations, but I think one of them is the Holocaust. No greater travail for Zion than the Holocaust. 6 million were lost. And had it not been for the Holocaust and a momentary twinge of conscience on the part of the nations of this world, the United Nations would never have voted a petition and allowed Israel to come into existence. And they surely would not do it today. So I think Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Verse 9, shall I bring to the birth and not cause to bring forth, saith the Lord? Shall I cause to bring forth and shut the womb? I don't think so. We've come a long ways through history. Israel is back in her land. We have the weapons of mass destruction that Christ talked about, except those days be short and no flesh would survive. We have the computer technology so that a man can control all banking and commerce in this world with a number. We have the global positioning satellites. We have the satellites up there, and the Antichrist, whether it's going to be a chip or what it will be, the Antichrist can find you anywhere. We were in Germany not too long ago, and we got they upgraded us. It didn't cost us anything. And what do you know? We had a GPS in there, and Bambi, we called her. And you don't have to tell Bambi where you are. You just punch in where you want to go. And Bambi immediately starts you right off. Go 100 yards, turn to the right, because they know where you are at any time. And you happen to have an old map, and you are not on the new road, you're in a field, come back, turn around, So they're watching you. We have the technology for the Antichrist to know where you are every time. And I don't think we've come all this way. And we've got the apostasy, so many signs. And I don't think it's all going to fall apart. And our brother's been telling us, how much longer can this seeming prosperity last based on debt and so forth? How much longer can this thing hold together? I don't think it could hold together much longer. And I don't believe the Lord is going to shut the womb. I don't think he's going to prevent this. He's going to bring this birth into fullness. I believe it will happen very, very soon. Thank you, folks, very much. Really enjoyed being here. Arno, thank you, and Ruth, and Midnight Call for having another conference. We hope there will be more. And let's just commit ourselves finally to the Lord.